Welcome to this episode of Social Share Club, the audio version, and I am here with my guest Deborah Henne, and we are getting ready to roll into everything that she's got going on. Songwriter, author, mom. So I'll bring her on. What is going on, Deb? How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Yeah, it's great having you. One of our mutual friends recommended, hey, you need to talk to this lady. It seems like she's doing some pretty cool stuff. So we met, and lo and behold, you are doing some pretty cool stuff. So if you want to just, how did you start getting into writing a book?
Well, I always loved writing, but I never actually thought about sharing anything that I wrote. And then I did a Bible study unit about the fruit of the Spirit for my girls. And lo and behold, we came to the trait of gentleness. And I thought, I got this in the bag. Gentleness, I mean, there's not much to it, right? It's just being gentle. But then when I opened up my reference books and I dug into the biblical definition of gentleness, it just blew my mind. And I kept digging and digging and researching and researching. And this prep that I thought would take not even a day, maybe not even an hour, wound up spiraling into years of research. I started writing, and some of my friends found some of my writing and said, you should try to get published. You should make a book. And I said, you're crazy. And they kept prodding and pushing me. And here I am. I did it. I wrote a book and it got published. And yeah, now we're out sharing it with the world.
So gentleness. So what did you find that was so profound that you wanted to dig into more of it?
Well, what I always thought of as gentleness was not causing harm. So behaving in a way that would just not cause harm. Like you think you'll be gentle with the dog, you're very soft with the dog, kind of a thing. But when I researched the biblical definition of gentleness, it starts with great power. And right there, I knew I had no clue what gentleness was. I mean, people had always looked at me and said, oh, you're such a gentle person. But when I saw the biblical definition of gentleness, I realized they weren't seeing gentleness. They were seeing evidence of fear and timidity. It was not being sourced in power and not being sourced in confidence. And the source wasn't strength or leadership, all of which are components of gentleness. Because gentleness, it not only doesn't cause harm, it creates growth and connection for all.
That's pretty powerful. So what is the difference? There's obviously some subtle differences between uh, gentleness and timidness.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes those two things are uh, closely linked, but yet very different.
Yeah, so I think of timidity as being more sourced in fear. So if my motivation and my method of making the decision is based in fear, it is not being based in power. Gentleness will always come from a place of power, which is a place of confidence. And with gentleness, it's this great power that is controlled to bring growth and kindness and goodness to other people.
Do you think there's a level of humility involved?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Humility is a component of gentleness as well. So gentleness is more like a smoothie trait than a one note trait.
Gotcha. How like a series of things that go into it?
So when I kind of dug into the definition and pulled it apart and I looked at the Hebrew language and the words that were used in Hebrew for gentleness, I found power, I found leadership, I found self-control or control, I found kindness, I found humility, and I found social connection. And when you take all those together and you blend it all together, you get gentleness.
Gotcha. We got some people logged in. Jay says, but isn't that how you get used? It's a great question.
That is a great question. And I would say no, because again, gentleness comes from not fear. Because if I'm operating in fear, I am much more likely to be taken advantage of. But if I'm operating from a place of confidence and a place of strength and a place of power, I'm not going to be used, because humility isn't being a doormat at all. Humility is being confident in who God made me to be and in who I am as a person, and seeing myself correctly in relationship to other people. So it's valuing other people, and it's also valuing myself. And if I'm valuing myself, I'm not going to be taken advantage of.
There it is. Self-value. I feel like that plays a big role in not being steamrolled, but still being gentle and not falling into being timid, and being you know being assertive isn't always a bad thing, but if you do it in a gentle tone, that makes it a little bit different, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then tone and attitude all go into it, right? So if I'm going to express myself, but I'm going to come at it in a harsh way, it's going to have a totally different flavor than if I come at it with confident assertiveness, um, versus aggression, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Eh, I guess Jay's response was being too gentle and open up the door for other parties to take advantage somehow. Um, I can understand that. Um, I'm under the party that if it's not yours, it wasn't meant for you anyway.
Mhm.
Um, so that is, I guess, my level of gentleness. But that may not be everyone's mindset or around that. So, what are some key elements of gentleness that you found through your book?
So I would say, number one, starting with that controlled power and being humble. Again, it's not something that, if I'm really truly standing in power and in confidence and in humility, I'm not going to let people walk over me, because I'm going to know who I am and my mission and my purpose. And I'm going to say the best yes. So lots of people can come at me, but, and they may all be good and maybe not all of them good, but I'm going to stay focused, and I'm going to choose the best yes for me, because I know that I have a specific mission, and I know that in order to fulfill that mission, I'm going to have to say no to things.
Interesting. And how do you make that trip? So there's a few different types of gentleness, right? There's gentleness from a place of power. There's a gentleness from a place of um, lack. There's gentleness where, somewhere in between. But I feel like, those two, you know, areas are how we operate typically, right? Or do you feel like there's maybe some other variables that could be in the mix?
There could possibly be some other variables, but I really think that if I'm standing firmly in who I am as a person and who I am created to be and called to be, and where my focus is, um and bringing to this earth what I am supposed to bring to this earth. Does that make sense? And if I'm strong and I'm confident in that, then I can best serve and uplift others. And in that, there is a return of blessing on my life.
Mm. Yeah, one of a mantra that I've been following is in order to be blessed, you must first be a blessing.
Yes,
And
100%.
yeah, that's kind of my barometer in conversations with people, or even working. um, uh, working through my job is, am I being a blessing? And is that, if I'm not, how can I be, right?
Right.
Um, so it creates some introspection. So what are some things that people can do to help themselves be more gentle and being able to better navigate?
Well, one thing that I did was I started to key into the areas that I was not as strong in. Like, I grew up a very, very shy, very timid girl, and a lot of that carried into my young adulthood. So I had to key into those areas of fear and overcome them one by one. And I did that through prayer. I did that through study. I did that through like deep breathing exercises, through encouragement from my friends and my husband, just step by step, keying into those areas that were holding me back in fear and overcoming them. That was how I overcame in the power area. Um, for kindness, just every day, finding some way to be kind to somebody, even if it's something little. For humility, again, that's a very delicate balance. That was a big struggle because I felt like if I focused on others too much, I wound up struggling with my own self worth and feeling inferior. But if I focused on myself, I was afraid of becoming conceited and prideful. So there was a really delicate balance with humility. And I mean, I myself am a Christian, so I find that it's easiest to root my humility in Christ first and focusing on God first. And then out of that, seeing myself and others the way that He sees us. So it can be in better balance.
Yeah, it's important to have that balance. So out of everything that you do, how is it that you balance, every with being a mom and songwriter and kind of the chaos that life hands us?
It can be a lot at times. It's a lot of hats because I also work. So I get up very, very early. I'm up by before 5 o'clock in the morning and I go to work, and I don't have a job where I have an end time. I have a list of things to do. So whenever I finish my list, I come home, I work with my kids with the schooling, and I always try to make fun time with them, whether it's reading a book or snuggling, playing a game, going for a walk. We do something fun together. Um, and then after the kids go to bed, or I run them around to the activities, and then I put them to bed, that's my time. That's my time to write. Sunday afternoons is kind of my time to be at the piano and work on some music. But it's a very delicate balance. I work hard, and at I have chunks of time for everything, and I budget my time, and I take advantage of every moment that I have.
Yeah, that's really important that you have things blocked off like that, because it can really you can create your own time sucks, if you get lost in the sauce. So, having schedules is critical.
Yes.
One of our former guests, Tracy, she just popped in. She says, "Awesome, fear can rob us of so much." So,
Yes.
uh, you know, understanding what the little things are that can rob us, and one of them is setting aside a schedule, and understanding where your openings are. It's kind of like playing double dutch. You want to be able to get into the next thing, but sometimes you're already stuck in another thing, right?
Right. Right. That's where, my calendar comes in handy, you know, making sure that everything gets on the calendar so I'm not double booking, and making sure that I'm keeping my blocks open for those priorities like work and family. And then at the end of the day, I get to work on my projects. But
Yeah, yeah. Chelsea says that's right. We cannot allow fear to overtake our mind. So there are so many little blocks, and that we need to be aware of, right? We need to be cognizant of potholes, um, and overcoming our fears is really critical. You know, Progress isn't made in the comfort zone.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
what was your first like pen to paper moment, right? Whenever you're like, all right, I'm doing this.
Well, I think it started after I'd spent so much time researching and seeing how much my mind was blown with my previous misconceptions about gentleness. And I thought, if I didn't know all of this, I bet other people don't either. And if it helped me, maybe it could help somebody else. And like I said, my friends had been getting after me for a little while to go the publishing route and seeing if I could get published. And so I said, I prayed about it and I felt like it was a go. And so I just started. And like I said, I don't have much time, but I take the time that I do have. And so I took those little blocks, and whatever I could get done in that block of time, I got done. And then the next day I did it again. And over that one took a lot longer to write because my kids were a little younger at that time. So I had less energy and less of those blocks because they needed me more when they were younger. So I think that one took me about 3 or 4 years to write, start to finish. But
Three to 4 years to write.
yeah, yep.
Nice.
Like I said, it was a turtle's pace. It was very slow. I already have other books drafted, and it did not take nearly as long. My husband said, "Wow, why did it take so much longer the first time?" I said, "Well, one, I had to learn about the writing process and learn how to write well. So there's a lot of redoing along the way. And two, the kids were a lot littler, and I'm a mom first, so I had to make sure I was spending the time with the kids." So.
Yeah, I think there was one of these millionaires or billionaires who like, how hard was it to be a billionaire? He said, well, the first million was the hardest. So it's just like writing a book, right? The first one's the hardest, and then after that they just flow. Because you've broken the dam, and you're now an author. Congratulations, right? And there's really no one holding a trophy for you. But it's getting out there. It's getting outside of your comfort zone. It's pushing through, and I think what you have is it's an awesome. I feel like more people need to understand gentleness, and as it applies to honestly the Bible. It, there are many wonderful lessons to be learned, and I look forward to reading more of your book. Anything else you wanted to add, Deb?
No, I just encourage people to not look at gentleness as a weakness, but as power's best kept secret is really the biggest takeaway from the book.
Mm, yeah. And so, where can people find you?
They can find the book on Amazon. It can be bought at the local bookstores. Bookstores will decide what they decide to stock, but it can be bought in bookstores or it can be bought on Amazon.
Oh, right. Yeah, you can head over to deborahhenne.com. I put the link uh, in the description, and you can go over to deborahhenne.com. You can get all of her links, and you can buy now and learn all about her. So, with that being said, thank you, Deborah. This was wonderful just sitting here and jamming out with you and understanding more about what it is that you're trying to do. And I applaud you. So congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me.
All right. And if you haven't already, please hit the like button. And we look forward to seeing you next time on the Social Share Club. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their evening. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye now.